Oh. Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Madam.
Good morning, madam.
Good morning, madam.
Good morning, ma'am.
Before starting today's session, I want to know whether you had your exam mid-semester.
Not yet, ma'am.
Sorry.
Not yet, ma'am. We didn't know when it will be.
Usually we start the second part of the module after the mid-semester, so that is why I wanted to know. We had just 1 week break. Anyway, I'm continuing to chapter 5. By the way, have you received your module? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you received? I don't know whether I have an issue with I cannot hear you all properly. Yes, have you received your module?
Yes, ma'am.
I think I have an issue, technical error, because I cannot hear you all very clearly. Is my voice clear?
Yes, madam, we received. Can you hear us? Can you hear me,
Okay,
ma'am?
okay, the message is clear, right. So if you have received the module, you know what is chapter 5. What is it?
Vocabulary.
Is that only vocabulary? It covers a vast area, not only vocabulary.
Sentence building, paragraph building, essay.
Yes, so it includes all the components up to writing an essay, right? So starting with vocabulary, we have to end with writing an essay. The content is vast, so that I have divided the content into 2 sections. Today I will cover up to a certain point, and then next day I will continue with the chapter 6, right? As she said, this focuses on vocabulary, sentence building, which is the basic unit of paragraph writing and essay. So we move to paragraph building and essay writing. Since the focus is first on vocabulary, what do you know about vocabulary? Can you tell me, what do you know about vocabulary? Anything you have learned, heard regarding teaching vocabulary or learning vocabulary? Or your personal feelings about teaching and learning vocabulary? You can share your ideas now.
Vocabulary plays a major role in a language, ma'am.
Okay. When language teaching as well as learning, it plays a major role. Others, please add to that.
A set of letters, madam.
Sorry.
A set of letters.
set of letters. Can we call it vocab?
No, words.
Even a set of letters, can we say, now let me give you an example, A, B, C, D. It is a set of letters. Can you call it a vocab word?
No, madam.
No.
No. So it's an incomplete idea. So try again. Think about your personal experience. That is the most important thing. What do you know about, or what have you experienced so far when handling vocabulary?
We need a strong vocabulary to communicate effectively.
Vocabulary convey meaning.
The words that we are using to give the ideas, our ideas.
Okay. So through words, we try to give our ideas. It is essential for communication. What else? As teachers, you don't speak about your experience in teaching vocabulary.
To improve writing and reading, we need vocabulary, madam.
To improve writing and reading, we need vocabulary. That is your idea, okay?
It
What
will
about speaking,
lexical chunks.
listening?
For all 4 skills, we need vocabulary, I think.
Okay, okay, right.
It differs according to the context.
What differs? What do you mean by it?
The vocabulary.
Differs, okay, according word meaning differs according to context.
And grammatical items.
Is
of
that what you want to tell? Yes, I didn't hear.
Grammatical items like this, that, it are also in it, right? The
So,
grammatical items,
vocabulary
pronouns, prepositions.
consists grammatical components. Okay.
Yes.
What else?
Vocabulary is the first step or the bottom layer of when it comes to paragraph building and writing essays, madam. That is the bottom part, vocabulary.
So you think it is the bottom when
It is what?
starting paragraph
It is the-
writing and
It is the basic thing for comprehension, ma'am.
it is the basic thing for comprehension. Okay.
Most of the time, students lack to identify or else improve their 4 skills because of the lack of vocabulary.
Madhushi, is this your personal experience?
Yeah,
Okay, good. So
because
like that, I want you to tell me what you have experienced so far, right?
normally it can be experienced like when we have the tests, the same topic, if we give them to write the essays. So if we take the whole class, let's take, there are 30 students. So we have 30 different essays for the same topic. And
Okay.
and the level of the essay means the improvement of the students we can measure, because the vocabulary is totally different from one to another. So depending on the vocabulary, there are more, very good essays, and sometimes if they can't understand the topic properly, if they lack of vocabulary, they can't write it properly.
Mhm. I like the way you share your experience, Madhushi. Thank you very much. And one question. You said you differentiate good essays from bad essays or weak essays on the basis of vocabulary. Is that the only criteria? What
No,
about
no.
sentence?
No, it's only one. Actually, students need vocabulary, at least the basic vocabulary related to the topic to elicit their
Topic.
ideas
Oh.
here. related to the grammar and the other mechanics of the language. Though they know the proper grammar or the language they should use under the topic, if they are lack of vocabulary, they can't, elicit the ideas.
Okay, thank you.
The knowledge about vocabulary is not enough for effective communication.
Kirti, could you please repeat it?
Just the vocabulary is not enough for effective communication. Students should know how to apply the vocabulary in the appropriate context.
So you are talking about different aspects of vocabulary. When we say vocabulary, last time also I have taught you 2 types of vocabulary. Can you remember? Within the term vocabulary, we have 2 compartments. What are they?
Is it open and closed, ma'am? Like grammatical items are closed.
No, no. We discussed it. It's like input and output. I'm giving clues.
Vocabulary that we use and we know.
So what are the 2 technical terms, Fatima? I have taught you.
How many terms?
Don't say I'm very poor in using technical terms. I have taught you. It's not encoding and decoding actually.
However, the vocabulary we know are more than the vocabulary we use.
Yes, Fatima?
No, however, the vocabulary we know are larger than the vocabulary we use.
Yeah. You remember
Madam, is it
everything except
active
the
and passive
technical terms.
vocabulary? Ma'am, is it active and passive vocabulary?
Yes, those are 2 other names for the technical terms that I introduced, right? Active vocabulary and passive vocabulary. So what is the term that I use for active vocabulary? The term I use for passive vocabulary. Fatima knows the meaning except the technical term. Can't remember. Receptive vocabulary and
Productive vocabulary.
productive vocabulary. Did we discuss about it, Fatima?
I can remember we discussed it in the last semester, ma'am, not this semester.
But if you about receptive and productive vocabulary. Receptive vocabulary is the vocab they absorb through 2 skills. What are the 2 skills?
Reading and listening.
Listening and reading. So the productive vocabulary means the vocab they use when speaking and writing. As Fatima said, always receptive vocabulary is larger than productive vocabulary. Why? Why? What is the reason? Can you think any reason for that?
Is it because we don't use them constantly and like that? We don't recall them often?
So what you are telling is how to bridge this gap between receptive and productive vocabulary. That is the teacher's role actually. So what you have to do is reduce or minimize the gap between receptive vocabulary and productive vocabulary. Why receptive vocabulary is larger than productive vocabularies? Now, whenever we learn a new vocab, until we improve our skills to use it in another context, apply it in meaningful context, it retains in our receptive vocabulary. So all the terms, the expressions that we acquire directly goes to receptive vocabulary, right? So from receptive vocabulary only we transfer words, expressions into productive vocabulary through continuous practice, right? Through continuous practice, we can minimize the gap. Okay, so let me go to today's content, right? As you all said, somebody said teaching and learning vocabulary. Teaching vocabulary and learning. Is teaching vocabulary difficult? Is it difficult?
So for that only we use certain techniques like language, games, and stuff. With the exposure, I mean exposure of the student, it is a bit difficult. If the child is, as you say, rich in print rich environment, it would be a bit easy, but a child where the background is low with the acquisition, then it's quite difficult.
Okay. So you mean it depends on the exposure of a child.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Okay. What about the others' ideas? Is teaching vocabulary a challenge or something difficult? No idea. So at least after this session, get some experience in teaching vocabulary. Then you can speak about the topic, right? The silence says that you don't have any experience related to teaching vocabulary. Okay, go ahead. So there's a popular concept that this is some kind of a challenge, teaching vocabulary in ESA or teaching vocabulary in English as a foreign language context, because of the way we handle it. Actually, we put less weight on teaching vocabulary, especially when students move to secondary classes. Most of the teachers, what they do is they focus mainly on improving reading and improving writing and focus on related sub-skills, except focusing on vocabulary. What I meant is, though they expose students to reading text. In a reading, so what they do is they plan activities, they set activities for children to identify meaning or interpret meaning or find synonyms, and that is the end of the task. It should not be like that, right? As Fatima said, if we want to enrich their vocabulary, the scope, what we need to do is we have to reuse the new vocab. they encountered in a reading text. Like we can extend the task to a puzzle, a word game, something like that. We need to give opportunities for them to recycle the learned vocabulary. If not, it will retain in their receptive vocab, right? So one example is, now Fatima knows the meaning of receptive and productive vocabulary, but she cannot remember the technical terms. So those are in her receptive vocabulary. So she cannot use them productively in discussions. Even like us, the adults like us, we have these two compartments, receptive and productive. Through our continuous engagement in listening and reading, we can enrich our productive vocabulary. So let's go through what scholars say about vocabulary and some specific terms like lexicon. Have you heard this word lexicon?
ඕක මේ රවුටර් එක charge කරා.
Lexicon. Anybody who has heard the word lexicon? Right. Graves say vocabulary is the entire stock of words belonging to a branch of knowledge or known by an individual. So according to Graves, lexicon refers to vocabulary in a particular language. And this vocabulary includes words and expressions. And Krashen says something little bit different. He interprets lexicon as the mental vocabulary in an individual's mind. So that mental lexicon is the person's knowledge of vocabulary. So each of us has a different mental lexicon. So the size of our mental lexicon varies depending on the exposure and our habits related to reading and listening. Why do we talk about vocabulary? Why do we talk about vocabulary? As somebody said, I think more than two people express their ideas, something related to what I'm going to say now. Without some knowledge of vocabulary, we cannot comprehend or we cannot produce language. Do you all agree? Vocabulary is needed to comprehend language and also to produce language. What do you say? Do you all agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
So now we know why we need to consider vocabulary when talking about writing or reading, right? Without the mastery of vocabulary, they cannot comprehend a text, or they cannot produce a piece of writing, or they cannot express their ideas in oral language. They cannot engage in a conversation. They cannot interact with another person. So that vocabulary plays a major role in language learning. But do we provide a rich environment in our schools or classrooms for children to acquire vocabulary? And do we give them direct instructions to enrich their vocabulary? What is your idea?
We don't provide enough opportunities because, as you said, we just try to
Sorry?
complete lessons.
Oh, Fatima, I cannot follow you. The voice is so soft.
Exactly. No? We don't provide enough opportunities because we mainly focus on finishing the lesson and then, doing some writing activities. But learning vocabulary, we can make it very fun. I mean, more interesting for them.
Okay, thank you very much for your idea. One point, she said, we want to finish our lesson. Fatima, what do you mean by finishing lesson?
Now, unit 1, we need to do the activities on the book and whatever the given tasks in the textbook and the student book, we try to complete it. The lesson plan for the day. We just stick to that. We don't include activities to, as you said, use the vocabulary productively. Now, previous lesson vocabulary, we don't try to remind them, recall them and use them in sentences. Like, even though we talk about vocabulary journals, we first few weeks we may do it and then we just forget it.
Hope the others are listening to Fatima, right? Because now when somebody speaks, I get some material for our discussion. Now Fatima said we are in a rush to finish unit or the lesson. Am I correct, Fatima? You mentioned something related to unit.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
in some text in the book.
But I think, madam, we have to introduce.
Yes, Ishani, speak a bit louder, Ishani. Ishani.
Madam, another thing is when the students are in grade 10 or 11, before we come to that stage, before we come to that age, the students' age, we have to, continuously start vocabulary activities or tasks when they are in grade 6 or 7. Am I correct, madam? I don't know whether I'm wrong. Then it is very easier to build up their vocabulary knowledge when they are grown up. From their basic age, from primary age, we have to come.
So you think vocabulary activities should be included in primary grades, not in secondary grades? That means senior secondary grade.
Yes, that means, madam, according to their grade standard. Standard.
Depending on the grade level, we change their exposure to the materials, right? Think about the primary grades and the general English. So their needs vary. So depending on the grade level, age level, we need to introduce vocabulary and we need to explicitly teach vocabulary, directly teach vocabulary, irrespective of the grade. Because there's no ending. Is there a destination for learning vocabulary? No, each day we add something new, right? When they listen to news, they acquire new vocabulary, right? So the context may be different, the levels may vary, but one thing we need to remember is it is an essential part in our teaching process. Now you have 5 days, so at least you can devote 1 day for a vocabulary lesson, right? So this supports their reading, listening, speaking, and writing, right? It's like,
Madam, we can,
yes,
Madam, we can ask the students to read short stories according to their level, simply versions, simplified versions, simplified versions, junior newspapers to
yes. So
to
you are
absorb
talking
vocabulary.
about another side, right? Another side. So now we were talking about the role of vocabulary and what we think about teaching vocabulary and what happens actually in our classrooms. Now, before I forget, I want to, this is not relevant to my topic today, but whenever I hear something wrong, I have to correct. Then now Fatima said, we are in a rush to complete the textbook or the unit. I'm asking this question from you all. What do we have to teach? What do we have to teach? What is predominant when planning lessons? This is the base for all what you do in your school.
Competencies, ma'am. Learning
Sorry?
objective. Competencies.
Where do you derive, where do you find competencies, or where do you derive, from where do you derive objectives? Are these objectives your own one?
From the syllabus.
Sorry?
From the syllabus, the teacher's guide.
Madhushi, could you please speak louder? Today I have technical issue.
From the related to the syllabus.
Yes?
Related to the syllabus, from the teacher's guide, we have the
Actually, what you said is right. From where do we find this? We have to refer to the syllabus. Syllabus provides us the outline. What the textbook does is it supplements. It provides materials for us to implement the syllabus. So the myth is teachers think what they have to finish is the textbook, whereas the syllabus is forgotten and they give prominence to text. Text is a collection of material. So you can find any other interesting material to implement the proper syllabus. Right? If you think the text is not interesting and not matching to the level of your students, you can still teach using another material, but you have to be within the frame of the syllabus, right? Don't forget it. That is why the whole teaching English in Sri Lanka ends in a failure. So teachers blindly follow and they always say that we have to finish the textbook. We are doing the textbook, and what they actually do is moving from page to page in the textbook, which is not their duty. Right? Remember that. So that is not relevant to our discussion today. But now think about this. Somebody said this handling vocabulary should be done in primary grades. Somebody said something related to that. Now think about your syllabus, right? This is why I say teachers forget the base and they run after text. Now the syllabus contains a number of competencies. How many competencies are there?
8.
8. And what are the areas? Number 1. Oh, I will save time. Is there a particular competency related to vocabulary? Yes or no?
Yes, madam.
Yes. Is it limited to grade 6 and 7? This particular competency?
No.
No. So it different levels and different subject contents are available in each grade. Number 4 is the competency related to vocabulary, and from grade 6 onwards we have this 4.1, 4.2 likewise. The subject content and the level vary depending on the grade. I think the one who gave me the answer that we have to put more focus on vocabulary when they are in grade 6 and 7. Now you can correct your beliefs related to teaching vocabulary, right? The same thing has happened to teaching speaking and listening. It is a part of our syllabus. We have specific competencies, but the teachers have forgotten because they are blindly following the text. Right? In schools, mostly these listening and speaking activities are done just before the term test because they know that they need to allocate 20 marks for that. Self-question, I'm not going to ask whether you do the same, but this is a time for self-questioning. Think whether you are doing it right or wrong, and please correct yourself, right? Now, when taking vocabulary, some children acquire vocabulary and sometimes we need to teach. We have to directly teach vocabulary, right? Therefore, we have two processes called incidental learning and intentional learning. What are the two processes? What are the two processes? Incidental and intention. Incidental means the children, without knowing that they are learning new words as a byproduct of their engagement in a kind of language related activity, they acquire some vocabulary. Right? We can say something like this. Now, when a child enters to a new school, if now automatically, if the children are telling, oh, other morning assembly TNO, so they acquire the term morning assembly and they comprehend the term by experiencing the content. So, did anybody teach them? So, since childhood, children acquire vocabulary. This is similar to L1, right?
Miss,
Before
can you
we
repeat the
start
second
teaching
one?
them vocab, they acquire by listening to others who speak the same language, and once they are introduced to the print-rich environment, they acquire vocabulary in print. So what should we do to accelerate this incidental vocabulary acquisition? Can we accelerate
them in the environment, and teachers can start speaking?
Wait, Fatima, since I cannot hear you all properly, I direct this question to the whole crowd. What can we do to accelerate incidental vocabulary acquisition in L2? Now, in home environment, can our students acquire English vocabulary? Are there opportunities for them to acquire? Think and type your answers in the chat. At home and at school, how can we accelerate incidental vocabulary acquisition? I am waiting for your answers, right? Good. Good. Now there are many suggestions. At home, we can encourage them to watch simple English cartoons, read books, watch news. And then another one says listening to news, English songs. At home, if they are exposed for listening English news or channels. And then Ishara has sent me a message by making students use some day-to-day vocabulary within the premises along with their parents, siblings, friends, or teachers. Madhushi has a good point, getting them to read rappers. They contain a lot of English vocabulary, good. By watching cartoons, movies, yes. So you should not focus on this incidental learning through listening. They can learn vocab through reading as well at home. Okay. What is freely available is the rappers. So now you know around us there are many authentic learning opportunities, and we can utilize or make use of them to accelerate incidental learning, right? As an encouragement, how can teachers assign them to listen or watch at home? Give an example. How do we direct your students? Are you going to just ask, okay, Puta, you watch TV news today? Is that the way you are going to guide? Yes. How can you encourage, or how can you let them actively involved in a
We can
task?
ask them to write down either the words, 2 words or 1 word they don't know, or maybe.
Okay, so that's good. Yes.
Madam, first we
Yes.
have to do them. First we have to listen, and gradually they will imitate us. and they will follow.
Hilini, could you please repeat it?
Madam, if we listen to the news and the other things, they will follow us.
I'm asking now, you are telling as a mother, as a parent, I'm asking as a teacher. As a teacher, how do you direct and how do you motivate this incidental learning?
We can
Yes,
ask them to write down the
Yes, write down what.
write down the unfamiliar words they hear, vocabulary terms they hear when they listen to English news or songs. We can ask them to note down those new words.
Mahesha, what do you think about their spellings? Will they be able to listen and note down unfamiliar words? Familiar words, okay.
Yeah, ma'am.
Unfamiliar words?
Yeah, it's write down. Yes, they can't.
It will be too challenging, no?
Yes.
And ma'am,
Yes.
if they are listening to the news, we can ask them how do they begin the news. They can write, if they can write, how they start the news and end the news.
Why do you always think about writing?
Wow. Oh, yes.
Because it's vocabulary, madam.
Yeah, vocabulary, don't they use in speech, Mahesha?
Mm.
When you
Yes.
use one, when you start learning L1, did you jump at once to writing?
No.
It's a natural process. They listen, they speak, right? So,
Ma'am, if we have some audio player or video player, we can play any cartoon just like Peppa Pig during their time. Then while they're having their food, automatically they will watch and listen to the cartoon. They will learn something through that.
of course, right? And we can play some very simple songs which contain language expressions useful for communication, right? Just search these super simple songs. They contain lot of language expressions needed for simple interaction. Even greetings, right? Exposure to songs, simple stories during interval before the beginning of school.
Ma'am, can we conduct
assembly.
some more assemblies weekly?
Sorry.
On Fridays? Can we conduct some assemblies on Fridays in each week?
Of course. Of course. So gradually the children will, when you start it, at the beginning it will be very difficult, but gradually children will catch up. What I wanted to tell is when you assign them to do certain things, when you want to let them open to incidental learning opportunities through the available materials at home, you have to always link it with a kind of language activity. For example, read a wrapper and copy down something, or listen to news and remember 3 words you heard, or headlines, depending on the grade, right? Yes, storytelling, okay. Good that now you come up with some examples. Let's move to the next. Yes, so Nishma has mentioned in morning assemblies, we can ask them to introduce 5 new words what they heard. That is why some schools have the morning thought in English, or a saying in English. Likewise, you can have very creative activities. Incidental learning motivates some students for extensive listening and reading. So they do reading and listening outside the classroom, because when they acquire something new, it becomes a kind of motivation. At home, students can acquire vocabulary through their engagement in spoken materials like listening to songs, audiobooks, watching videos, TV programs, and adults reading aloud to them or reading books widely by them. At school also, we can create exposure, opportunities for exposure, engagement, and interaction. And for that, we need to design a particular school culture where students can acquire vocabulary. We are not teaching them directly, but we create such an environment where they can incidentally acquire vocabulary, turning the linguistic landscape of the school into an English environment. For example, labeling the things in the classroom, in the school premises in English, and introducing certain expressions for specific context. This is how you have to request permission to go out of the class. This is how you have to request to go to the library. Something like that. You can introduce useful routines in the school, like the ones we discussed, assembly or media programs. Now, in schools, we have media units. Rather than that, when conducting English program, we can give a specific date for each grade, like grade 6 Monday, grade 7 Friday, likewise. And giving opportunities through co-curricular activities like English exhibitions, English days, English activity days, debates, quiz programs, many other activities can be done. Classroom language used by the teachers make a very good impact, positive impact. Yes, Kabesha, vocabulary tree is a very good concept. You can design a vocabulary tree or allocate a place for a vocabulary tree in the classroom and ask students to add one word to the tree every day. Something new that they have learned at home through reading or through listening. Ishani has mentioned we can relate bedtime stories, and while reading we can introduce new words to kids. If you introduce kids, that is intentional learning. We relate storybooks, we act out the characters, so children guess the meaning and they learn indirectly, right? So that is different, right?
Ma'am, you're mute.
Okay. What do you think about classroom language? Some teachers of English, they do not use classroom language effectively. Mention now in the chat, mention the occasions that we can use English for classroom language. Specific occasions. where we use classroom language. Occasions or purposes. Could you please type? Give instructions for what, Madhushi? Now, giving instructions include different aspects. Giving instructions for what, Madhushi? Can you add more?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it giving instructions for an activity or giving instructions for grouping? Did you understand? So giving instruction is an umbrella term. Within that, we have some subtopics, like giving instructions for grouping, right?
Yeah.
Giving instructions for time management, giving instructions for an activity.
Yes.
Taking permission or giving permission. I'm asking about teacher's language, right? Classroom language used by the teacher. Did teacher take permission or students take permission? So it should be giving permission. Making request, okay. So someone has written routine such as, it is not a routine actually, exchange your books means once again giving instructions. Get into your groups, again instructions, write down instructions. So what you have mentioned come under instruction. Simple commands and polite requests. I don't like to see teachers commanding children. Rather than the word command, we'll say giving instructions and polite request. Okay. Instructions for language games. What else?
Ma'am, can't we teach them, I mean, explaining grammar and all? I mean, using bilingual, certain words which are difficult, we can use the Sinhala word and then start explaining it in like giving activities. I mean, mostly accompany English in teaching. Isn't it possible?
Now, are you referring to teaching vocabulary or grammar?
No, usual teaching, ma'am, and not any particular skill or competency. Like in general, now when we teach, we use English, but if we find that they, I mean, we can understand it with their level and their body language, we can use Sinhala as well, but always speak in English. Isn't that possible?
Haven't I discussed about this previously? Managing teacher talk. Others, please give your ideas about the question raised by Fatima. Yes, can others give your ideas about the question raised by Fatima? Use of L1 in language classroom, second language classroom, is it prohibited? Have I mentioned like that?
No, it's not prohibited. It's not prohibited. What I asked was, I mean, in even in teaching vocabulary, we can, like you asked what are the ways that we can use language. So through that, don't they learn vocabulary? When the teacher is using, okay, children, today we'll say brainstorming ideas for an essay. We can write the topic on the board and we can tell them, put them into groups and what do you feel when this topic is seen? Write it on a piece of paper and each, conducting the lesson in English, wouldn't that help them learn vocabulary as well?
That is what we are talking about now. What is my topic? Classroom language.
Yes.
Classroom language means teacher's classroom language means teacher talk. In other words, I'm asking, my question is, in the classroom, for what purposes do teachers use language? One is giving instructions. So giving instructions, what you are now explaining also come under giving instructions for a lesson, giving instructions for an activity, a language game, right? Giving instructions to manage their time, giving instructions to set goals.
Requesting something from the students?
Yeah, requesting is also, yes, requesting, giving permission, greetings, right? What else? Teacher ki role le kamataka velada.
Giving feedbacks, madam.
Very good. Giving feedback. I was thinking about this. Who will remember this? Giving feedback. Beginning of the lesson, ending of the lesson, right? What else? Where else?
Exchanging teachers' experiences with the students?
Asking for and giving information, to share experience, to describe a process. Marking register. Isn't it a place where teacher can use little English?
Absent and present.
Yeah. And teacher can extend that, whether that child is present, absent, into a conversation, actually. Very authentic conversation. And what about eliciting? Eliciting is a skill that teachers should develop. To elicit their experience, to get the students to speak, you should know how to elicit. If you continue asking close-ended questions, there won't be any opportunity for students to talk more. Their answers will be limited to nodding head or yes or no answers. So when you direct eliciting questions to students, you should direct open-ended questions, right? So it is one way of showing them to think different ways.
Madam, excuse me.
Yeah.
How these things related to vocabulary?
You mean what I'm talking now?
Yes, madam.
Yes, right. Yes. Good. Now, some may have forgot we are talking. Now we are talking about incidental learning opportunities, Mahesha, right? When a teacher uses classroom language, the children get opportunity to listen to English more and more. Through that, they absorb vocabulary. Is it clear, Mahesha?
Yes, madam, yes.
If you can't see the link of what I'm talking, please ask like Mahisha. So that shows she has forgotten what we were talking at the beginning.
I'm sorry.
Right? So using classroom language or teacher talk is one way of providing incidental learning opportunity for children to absorb vocabulary, right? Now, though we provide opportunities for children to listen to language, what we need to remember is unless we provide them continuous practice, the vocabulary learned will retain in their which vocabulary, which compartment? What is the compartment? If we do not give enough practice, the new vocabulary will retain in there. Huh? What is the compartment? Today I started the lesson recalling these two. Yes, good. Receptive vocabulary, right? So they have heard the word, but they know the word. They can identify the word, but they cannot use it. So what is our role then? What is our role? We need to plan opportunities for them to reuse the new words. Right? So linguists have contrasting views on this. This means how many times learners need to be exposed to a lexical item before they can commit it to memory. This Wolf says it is not only the amount of times, that means it is not the frequency, but how well learners encounter a word that determines how well they retain it. So we have to create, as teachers, what we need to understand from this is, it is our responsibility to plan intentional learning opportunities for children to reuse the vocabulary. Through reuse or several practicing activities, they will be able to apply the new vocabulary meaningfully in different contexts and in written language and oral production. Up to this, is it clear now? So we have talked about some tips for the teacher for incidental learning at school. So this is what you can do at school. You can label everything in your classroom, not only in classroom. You can label everything in school. Establish routines or ground rules, display ground rules, instructions everywhere in the school. And we can introduce practices such as maintaining scrapbooks. Those are leisure activities where children can take the ownership of maintaining scrapbooks or journals or diaries. Through these practices, they can enhance learning vocabulary. Speaking to your children with rich vocabulary, that is what we talk about using classroom language. And then providing text with rich vocabulary and images. Now, when giving text for reading, you can help children acquire vocabulary by choosing the right text. difficulty level, and the text which are supported with vocabulary, keywords, and images. And you can plan your lessons, providing opportunities for vocabulary games. Singing songs, listening to songs, doing activities based on listening is another way of providing opportunity for incidental learning. And use of cognates. I think we have talked about cognates. What do you mean by cognates?
Last semester, ma'am, the say carrot, carrot, bus, bus.
Ah, right, good. So when you introduce structures, we can use cognates so that help them to capture structures easily without knowing that they learn. Now, I'm not going to discuss these things in detail. Now, these are some strategies for teaching vocabulary. For students, it is learning vocabulary, right? In your course manual, there are some other examples. So I want, since you all are teachers, I want to expose you all to a large variety of activities so that I didn't copy the same thing into slides. You can read and find some other activities from the manual. I have listed a different set. Is it okay?
Of course, it's great.
Yeah. So eliciting is a technique or a strategy. So this can be done as a group activity as well. You can divide the class into 2 teams. One team can call out a word. The other team can give a definition or a synonym or an antonym. Or if it is verbs, one team can call out a verb and ask the other team a different form. This can be applied to word classes as well. You give the root word and the other team, one team gives a root word, the other team has to convert it into a noun, adjective, or an adverb likewise. And then contextualization. So for this, we can assign them to use words in sentences, first through gap filling activity. Or now, if they have listened to a song or a story and acquire some new words, we can create opportunity for them to retell a story by prompting through visual clues or sentence starters. Or we can ask them to act out a role play. Labeling. We can do labeling activities, and this activity can be done as an extended activity or a homework. Personalization, it is known as deep processing. Now, imagine you taught the simple poem, Row, Row, Row Your Boat, right? So you ask them to illustrate row. Will you get the same picture from each and every child? Will you get the same picture from each and every child?
If we sing the poem at first, yes, ma'am. Row, row, row your boat. No? So they'll definitely draw a boat.
I'm asking whether you will get this exactly same picture from each and every child.
No, 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 not exactly the same picture.
Why?
Because imagination is different from one to one.
Sorry?
Imagination is different from one to one.
Yes. One child may draw a child rowing a boat, or another one can draw an adult rowing a boat in the sea or in the river. One good example for this is, I read recently, I read this. A child has drawn an elephant and colored the elephant pink. And then the father or mother has scolded the child for coloring it using pink and asked why. Right? Anybody who has read this story? So that is a very good example for this personalization, right? So the child has explained, this is an elephant who was fallen into a hole of paint. So that is the child's imagination. The child know in reality there's no such holes, but the child has visualized. What do you think about two children coloring the elephant using black and the one who colored the elephant using pink? Who has more deep processing?
The child who colored in pink?
Yes, because that child is thinking more, applying a kind of his own meaning to the idea that he has captured, right? That is why we should not teach drawing to small kids. So drawing is the best way of expressing their thoughts in the primary grade, right? So even in language classrooms, to elicit what they know, elicit the vocabulary that they have captured, you can ask them to draw their garden. I'm talking about the primary, grade 3 children. So if you can ask them to draw your garden, and then you can do an activity. Okay, Puta, get up, show and tell the things in your garden. So that though they cannot write the word, they will describe the picture using the English vocabulary they know. So you can count the number of vocabulary they know, each child, and have an assessment of the theme related vocabulary. Learning vocabulary by identifying productive prefixes and postfixes. I put postfixes because we add suffixes to the end of the word, right? When they know these prefixes and suffixes, it helps them to identify the guess meaning. For example, the certain common prefixes. Think about the prefix un. It gives the negative meaning, the opposite meaning. If they know that, when they see the word unclean, they know how to guess the meaning. It is not clean. Likewise, so exposure to prefixes and suffixes is a way of enriching students' vocabulary. And we can plan activities based on these prefixes and suffixes. Maybe filling puzzles, right? Back to the board activities.
Madam, excuse me, can you show the previous slide again, madam?
Okay.
Miss, what do you mean by prefixes and post?
Postfixes, I mean suffixes.
Sorry?
Suffixes. I use this
Okay.
purposely because in the primary grades, we cannot teach them the technical terms, can we? We cannot. So
we cannot.
what we can do is we can show them the positions, like these are the letters we add to the beginning. We fix it at the beginning. These are the letters we add the end of the word. That is why I use this purposely, like prefixes and postfixes. So you can have a simplified version without using the technical terms. Maybe letter cards based activities. Is the purpose clear?
Yes, miss, understood. Thank you.
If I use this term prefixes and suffixes, you think that this is limited to secondary, right? Association is another strategy we can use to enhance vocabulary. Now, learners learn to associate new vocabulary or target word with something they already know. Give an example. Can you think of an example? Now, if I give the word read, right? I want them to express what they read. Imagine I am doing this activity in the classroom. What can I do? What do you read, Fatima?
I read notes.
Huh? Okay. Read notes. Another one. What do you read?
Novels.
Novels, okay.
Short stories, poems.
Short stories. So read novels, read short stories, read poems. Now you are associating the word read with something you know. Right? Is it clear? Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So through association, you can help children to construct meaningful phrases. Now, since our focus is on writing, we can prepare them orally first and get them to write. Semantic mapping is something you do. The word is new. Through semantic mapping, we force children to think, read, and write. And we activate in another way, we activate their prior knowledge in relation to a topic that we are going to handle. We can do semantic mapping using graphical form or using words itself. Can you give an example for semantic mapping? What you usually do? This is a very common technique that you do as a pre-writing activity. What do you do? Example for semantic mapping?
Clustering, mind mapping.
Sorry?
List down the words we know.
Okay, listing.
Clustering and mind mapping.
Before clustering, you have to do something, no?
Yeah, then listing down words. Brain. What you think of the topic.
Now, think about the word mapping. Listing doesn't go with mapping, no, Fatima. It's a way of activating prior knowledge. For all the other description, it matches, but associate the term with a pre-writing activity you do in the class, you do this.
Brainstorming?
Brainstorming and
This is a technique of brainstorming. How do you brainstorm? You write the topic in the middle and what do you do?
organize a mind map.
Arrows and then.
Yes? You put some arrows and get them to develop what?
Concept map. Yeah, ideas.
Concept map. Okay. So that is one example for semantic mapping, right? Now, character trait vocabulary chart. So my examples cater to different grades. So you have the option to choose what matters with the grades that you handle, right? Character trait vocabulary chart can be used as a homework activity. You can assign children to read the story and select some words which describe the character. You can have a very simple versions, like somebody said, simple versions of popular stories. If they can pick vocab like fox, cunning, brown, the words which describe a story, the character of a story, that is a way of building vocabulary. You can have this as a practice, like scrapbook, journal, diary. You can make this a practice, continuous practice, right? Read a book at least once a week and fill this chart. So children maintain a personal character trait vocabulary chart for them. And by the end of the month, you can ask them to bring it and have a display. And then you can elicit more information, encourage conversations between children, like they can exchange ideas about the books that they read, the name of the stories, likewise. Learning vocabulary via analogy. Now, the term may be new, but this is something you have done even in primary classes. Find the odd one. Cross the odd one. Haven't we done this in primary grades? Find the odd one.
Yes.
Do we have this kind of activities even in the primary books?
Yes.
Circle the odd word.
Yes. And
Yes.
it pictures as
So
well.
it can be made into a high order activity by changing the context.
Ma'am, we can't hear you.
Storytelling, like somebody said, story is a very good activity. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, now.
I can hear me.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, we do hear you. I think it's a connection issue. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that we could hear. Can you hear me now? Part was said.
Okay. If you can't hear me, please send me a message, then I will stop. Right. We were talking about the storytelling. This year I have planned a project, special project in my zone for private students, which I'm going to implement through teachers of grade 4. My target group is grade 4 teachers, so we are going to have a storytelling project. Storytelling helps to accelerate that receptive vocabulary into productive vocabulary. I have experienced this as when I was a teacher, so that I thought, why don't we start it now for the benefit of the primary students? So even you can do this as a project. You need to take extra time. That is the only issue. At least once a week. This doesn't mean that you need to get students to write the stories or write vocabulary at first, right? So first it should be fun-based activities which encourage them to detail whatever they have captured through listening. If it is student reading story, can introduce writing part as well. But it should be frame writing, like story map, a visual presentation, like a train, what happens at the beginning. They write in the engine of, within the engine of the train. What happened in the middle of the story, they write in the middle compartment. What happened at the end, they write in the final compartment. Likewise, the words which associated with the beginning, middle, and the end. One thing is learning vocabulary through story innovation. Now, haven't you done that activity? Very simple one. I went to the market and bought. Have you done that activity? Chain story. I'm waiting for your answer.
You had 2 carrots, a bag of peppers.
Yes, so children start adding vocabulary. I went to the market and I bought. You can say, then another person, they add likewise. So through that, what are we doing? We are enriching their vocabulary related to a particular theme. You can use different sentences to create stories, right? On my way to school, I saw. Right. So next day you can change pattern. On my way to school, I heard. Right. So it depends on creativity. You can create many opportunities. So this can be labeled as the simplest form of story creation. I can give another example. You can start by saying, last night I saw a monster, right? And then you invite children to describe the monster, guess and describe. It has, then one child says it has 2 heads. So likewise, they can, if the lesson is related to body parts in the primary. So through this, you can get them to think and create stories by using the vocabulary that they have practiced.
I do it in my room. I have got one brown cupboard. The household items.
Yes, so you can give different context, but children love that idea. And even for homework, you can give the same sentence prompt and ask them to create their own storybooks by drawing pictures and labeling the pictures. The same sentence pattern, and they draw the picture, one picture for one page, and the picture. categorizing words. Now, you know that in Sinhala also children do an activity called Gahanu Pirimi Mal Palaturu. The same way, we can give a letter and ask them to categorize the given words, or we can ask them to, without giving a particular word, we can ask a given, ask students to categorize a given set of word. You can make these activities very kinesthetic. For each group, give a set of word cards and make this a competition, right?
I do that as well.
Sorry?
I also do this Gahanu Pirimi, but I give a letter. And
All
I
right.
also play along with them. Most of the time.
Like you can have many adaptations, Fatima, depending on the level and your focus of the lesson.
You
right?
said
If your
set of words is means it doesn't need to start with the same letter, isn't it, ma'am? It can
Yeah.
differ like a name of
yes, Niroshana is giving like, I am Niroshana, I like noodles and I am from Norway. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Those are very simple created stories. Right? You can add variations likewise. Now, vocabulary finder is word search activities. Now you give a maze of letters, a square or a rectangle, and you ask them to circle the known words like colors, numbers. Even in our primary books, we have this. Somebody has given the activity Minister's Cat, Niroshana. Can you describe it to the others, please?
Ma'am, that which adds adjectives. There's a meaning.
Ask this crowd to do it.
There's a minister. There's a first teacher has to give the initial step beginning with.
Okay, wait. Niroshana, now imagine we all are your students and you are doing this in your class, right? Okay, we are ready to follow your instructions. Tell us.
Ma'am, first we had to say like, teacher has to say, there's a minister with a cat. It's very arrogant. So the next one adds with another adjective for it. That's the minister's cat is arrogant and aggressive.
Okay. Imagine now we all are grade 4 students. Shall we give it to this minister's cat activity?
No, ma'am. With that, it's.
We cannot.
We can make it simple and give it, isn't it?
Yeah, why can't we? Yes.
Minister's cat.
Okay, beforehand, to minister's cat, what sort of knowledge should be there?
Describing adjectives like color.
Adjectives, yes. Okay, so that you have to activate their prior knowledge before doing this activity. Hope the others got it. An addition. Thank you, Niroshana, for that. Your idea. You know this tic-tac-toe? Have you played with your students? Now it's a guessing game, right? Okay, I have guessed a phrase. Now you have to ask questions to find what I have guessed. I have taken one word from each You say each in a pattern, diagonally or vertically, so horizontally. From each column, I have taken a word and I have a phrase. Now you can post, you can type the phrases to guess what I have guessed. Can you? You can ask questions to guess the phrase that I have created. It is something meaningful.
Is it round in shape, ma'am?
Yes, it is. Good guess. Now, if you are doing this in class, children don't need to ask such questions. They can ask just, is it round? Is it new? Is it broken? Likewise, right? Okay, any other question? Children are better than these teachers. Yes?
This is a guessing game, madam, isn't it?
Do we use them every
Yeah,
day?
this is a guessing game.
Guessing game. So the students ask, is it old? Is it broken? Are they saris?
Yeah. But teachers' focus is on using vocabulary and
Right.
collocation, the use of adjectives appropriately. They ask,
Easy, we have to
is
make a
it,
phrase like broken old table, something like that.
yeah.
Or
They want, yes.
do we have to build a phrase using those words like broken old table?
At the end, they have to build the phrase, right? So it should be something meaningful. You don't create plastic saris.
Yes.
Yes.
Or plastic ice, right? So it should be something meaningful.
Expensive cotton sarees, like that.
What I thought, can you guess?
This is the order of adjectives, ma'am, using.
Order of adjectives can be practiced more than the order. Collocation, right? I just added an example. You can think and create a more meaningful grid for this activity. I wanted to explain the idea. And they will practice the structure, E-sit, right? And if you want, you can introduce, yes, it is. No, it is not. So the conversation practice is also done. Can you guess the phrase that I created? No. Another one is use of bilingual dictionaries. This
What is the
helps.
phrase? You didn't tell us, no. We couldn't guess.
Sorry?
You didn't tell us what you tried to create out of that. We couldn't guess. No one couldn't.
I can't hear you.
I'll type it now.
Speak a bit louder, Fatima.
No, madam, that previous one, tic-tac-toe, that's a guessing game. And what is the, we have no clear idea about that. We know how the game continues.
You all didn't play, so that I change the slide.
No,
So
ma'am,
to play,
we couldn't find.
Ma'am,
so you have to ask questions to identify the phrase.
Is it
Finally,
something we use every day? Is it a phrase that we use every day? Usually.
Can you put the questions in the? I cannot hear you all. No. Maybe you are using. Yes, Kanaga your guess is right. All round table. That is what I guess. I created. In the class, you should not promote these silent answers. They have to ask, is it old? Is it expensive? Is it big? Right? Is it new? And then they ask questions to the second row adjective. Is it round?
we can't hear you properly, madam.
Plastic. Likewise.
Your voice is lagging, madam.
Right? Got it? Is it clear now? Sorry?
Madam, that guessing game, the final answer, all round table. So why can't we say new round table?
Or expensive cotton saree?
Big round eyes.
Now, anybody can guess anything, but you have to out what I guess. It's a challenge.
Can't hear you, madam.
Got it. We have to guess what you thought, not what we can make.
That means there is the something in teacher's mind, the student have to guess.
Yes, I guess it's something like that.
Yes, Fatih.
So
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, madam.
Now, there should be a leader. So the leader create a phrase and do not let others know, right? So the others ask questions to guess what he or she thought. So you can take turns. Is it clear? If Fatima takes a turn, Fatima can think about something else. Round table or new plastic table, or a cotton sari, or expensive sari, something like that. Is it clear?
Yes, madam. Yes, madam.
Right. So it's a guessing game, a simple one, where you promote listening and speaking and use of vocabulary. Use of bilingual dictionaries is also a way of promoting vocabulary, but some researchers say it slows down a student's vocabulary acquisition, right? Because they focus more on L1. If properly used, it's a way of enriching vocabulary, right? Use of audio-visual equipment and computers. By guiding students to engage in interactive learning materials, we can enrich their vocabulary. Or like you all said, we can ask them to watch TV programs or video clips or listen to news and ask them to transfer that knowledge based on vocabulary by giving a task sheet or a simple activity. Word awareness is a way of displaying vocabulary. We can ask them to, or teacher can create this, or we can get the groups to create vocabulary posters and hang them on the wall, and we can have vocabulary based games using the posters in the classroom. Graphic organizers is also a way of enriching vocabulary. We can introduce different graphics and ask them to insert the words that they learned and post it on the wall. And from time to time, we can ask them to read them, practice them, and use them in some other activities. Even drawing pictures, labeling help them to make connections between spoken and written language. This is a set of another methods to introduce vocabulary. The person Ghana introduced some activities. He says spending time on a word by dealing with 2 or 3 aspects of the word. There are different aspects related to words such as spelling, pronunciation, its word class likewise. So teachers have to focus on these aspects and plan activities. We can get learners to do graded reading, that get them to read graded level readers, or listening to stories based on the grade level, appropriate to their grade level and their language performance. And we can plan activities to elicit whether they have acquired any vocabulary through reading or listening to stories. And we can plan activities like spot the difference, find the partner, to test or teach vocabulary or practice vocabulary related to a lesson or a theme. According to him, a teacher should allocate time each week to do a kind of word revision. If we teach vocabulary, why is incidental learning of vocabulary important? Can you think?
Can you please
Now, if we are doing vocabulary focused lessons, still why is incidental learning important? Any idea? If we teach them intentionally, is it necessary to create opportunities for incidental learning?
Yes, because it gives them the opportunity to, recall their memory by seeing or, or hearing it over and over.
And
There's
by
a request for 9899 to mute. Okay. Yes, any other idea?
Without forcing, when the students acquire, ma'am,
Madhushi, I'm
yeah,
sorry. Could you please say it a little bit louder?
okay, ma'am. Without forcing, when they acquire through their environment, it is easily, they can reuse it again, because I think they can remember it well without retaining those things in their
Yes.
respective vocabulary.
Yeah. What they acquire, they remember, right? Okay. Because they have learned it with the context, not in isolation. So that is more meaningful for students. That is one reason. But there are many other reasons. The main reason is, can we teach vocabulary in a language within our classrooms? No, it is impossible, right? So the minimum number of words required for comfortable reading or listening is too large to be learned only through intentional study, right? As Madhushi said, incidental learning is contextualized so that the learners get a richer sense of word and its meaning, and therefore it retains in his or her memory. Let me hear me or can't hear?
Now can hear.
All right, okay. So they say once you expose them to absorb a word like 25 times, so they retain it in the vocabulary. It is individualized and learner-centered, and it depends on the learner's own choice. And like the classroom teaching, presentation, consolidation, and lexical development occur as parallel processes without teachers' influence. And this has disadvantages as well. We cannot measure it. Sorry, there's nothing. So the technical terms, the children will not learn technical terms through this incidental vocabulary acquisition. Technical terms and the content related vocabulary. For example, if it is photosynthesis, it's a content related word. So it's difficult for children to acquire these technical terms and academic vocabulary through this incidental vocabulary acquisition. And we don't have a control, and we have no way of deciding. We can guide students to watch or listen to a video clip, but we don't know the level or the words that they acquire. and this may lead to incorrect learning as well. Now, I'm asking this question. What does it mean to know a word? When you say, I know that word, what do you mean by I know the word? How many aspects are related?
Meaning of the word?
Spelling, pronunciation, meaning.
I'm sorry to trouble you all. Today you have to speak a bit louder. When you speak louder, only I can hear you all.
The meaning of the word, ma'am?
Yes?
The meaning of the word, where we can use the word.
Give me 5 minutes, right? Take a 5 minutes break. I'll try to settle this technical. Can you all hear me now? Fatima, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. Hear you.
We can.
Okay, I settled it.
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you. I was not in the seat.
Okay, because I gave you the break, I think you can come within 10 minutes, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hope you all have come back. Are you all following?
Yes,
ma'am.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. My second question, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. It's clear.
Right. So the question that I asked was, what does it mean to know a word? How do you say, or when do you say that I know a word? I know that word.
Madam, can you please share that slide again, madam?
When you know the meaning.
I will share it, but I'm raising the question. After you give me the answer, I will show the slide again.
Okay, madam.
When you say that I know a word,
When we know the spelling, the pronunciation, meaning and all, ma'am.
when you know meaning, pronunciation, yes,
And the spelling.
Spelling, okay.
As well the usage, ma'am.
Sorry?
As well the usage.
Usage. What do you meant by usage, Hiroshina?
Ma'am, when to use it and how to use it in context.
Okay. What else? Other don't have any idea. What does it mean to know a word varies from a little to a lot. Sometimes children can say, I know that word, but they know only the spelling. But for an adult, knowing a word may mean a lot. So let's go through this researcher day ideas about a description of the extent of word knowledge in 5 stages. He describes this in 5 different stages, ranging from 0 to an advanced level, right? The first stage is we don't know anything about the word. It's totally new, right? We don't know the spellings or anything about a word. Student, the general sense of the word. What do you mean by a general sense?
A vague idea about the word.
Yeah, a rough idea. Maybe they can read it, right? Now, what do you think about the second statement? The student has a general sense of the word. So, if this is the situation, that word is in his so receptive vocabulary or productive vocabulary.
Receptive.
Receptive. Now you know it. So when words are in the receptive vocabulary, they have a general sense. Third stage, the student has a narrow, context-bound knowledge about the word. Now, where do you think the word is? Now, where do you think the word is? Receptive or productive?
narrows context, still in the receptive.
Yes, still in the receptive. Now, when you read the word mango, you know it's a fruit. But you don't know how to use it in a sentence or to say at least I like it. Just the word label familiar. The fourth stage, the student has a basic knowledge of the word and is able to use it in many appropriate situations.
Now productive.
Yeah, so now the fourth stage means productive. What is the difference between the fourth and the fifth stages? Read and see.
You haven't shared anything, ma'am, to read?
Extremely sorry. Now can you see it?
Yes.
What is the difference between the
The two,
fourth and
they
the
know the word classes, the different or word classes and stuff, more information about the word. But in the fourth stage, it is just I mean, if you, for example, import, I mean, when you import, we know we import, but like there are, when you stress in the first part, it's a verb, and when you stress on the second part, it is a noun. So you know more about it.
Mhm. In the fourth one, child has a basic knowledge, means maybe know the spelling, word plus, and when to use it, right? Limited functions. Limited functions of the word. Now, a word can have multi meanings in different contexts, right? So, fifth one says the child can use the same word to give different meanings. Not only the surface meaning, maybe a deeper meaning in various contexts, right? The child has a rich knowledge of the word. That includes maybe the child can give several synonyms, antonyms, and define the word, can use it in varied contexts. When teaching vocabulary, we can focus on three things. So all what we discuss, we can put under three headings: form of the word, meaning of the word, and use of the word. You all mentioned these things, right? But now we are going to discuss it technically. When we say form, we refers to it pronunciation, spelling, inflections, and derivations of the words. Inflections and derivations, different forms that we create. And then when we move to the second part, the meaning, the basic or the surface meaning, or the dictionary meaning of the word. And then we have some other meanings, literary meaning, other than the literary meaning. We can attribute different meanings. Give an example.
Break a leg, we say, usually we say break kadana or the break gahana, but when we wish break a leg is we wish somebody like all the best.
Right. If I'm telling I'm in a hot seat, is it the literal meaning or figurative meaning?
Figurative.
Figurative. So likewise, the meaning, we can discuss many different meanings, like socially attributed meanings in different among different communities. Likewise, and then we have the use. There we talk about subcategorizations and collocations and stylistic meanings of the word. This is for your general understanding to know what to teach in words. This is just one way of teaching vocabulary. Presentation, practice, consolidation, and then lexicosemantic development. So this is just one example. There are many other examples. There are many paths to reach the same destination, right? At the presentation, teacher can provide a description, explanation, or example of the new term or the new word. And then we can ask the students to restate. And then they can create or construct a picture or a symbol or a graphic to express their own idea of the term. And then teacher and get students to engage in activities to master the new concept, introduce new vocab. And we can ask students to get into pairs and explain the new term. And then we move to practice stage. The teacher can use different text types like songs, games, or fun-based activities to give more practice of the selected vocabulary.
Madam, excuse me, can you show the previous slide again?
Okay. Okay. Madhusha?
Right,
Is it
madam.
okay, Madhusha?
Okay, thank you, madam.
Right. Practice and consolidation. For that, teacher can use the keyword and implement reinforcement activities to provide sufficient practice. What are reinforcement activities? Practicing activities which involve the key vocab. Language games may be like word searches, puzzles, quizzes, even writing activities, gap filling. In order to help students to develop vocabulary, teacher need to direct them for extensive reading. what you do within the classroom is not enough. So the activities should be extended to home or outside the classroom. For example, a simple activity like this, you give a list of items, a shopping list, right? Ask them to visit the shop nearby and tick the items available, or find the prices of each item, which enable them to reread the vocabulary list. Now we are turning towards intentional or explicit or direct vocabulary instruction, which is a must even in the secondary. Even in the secondary, right? Not only in primary and grade 7. This is needed even in senior secondary. This intentional vocabulary instruction means you focused on teaching vocabulary. You have carefully chosen a list of words and you plan your instructions to make students familiarize with the words that you select. Usually, when do you do this? During which stage of writing or reading?
Pre-reading, the first stage.
During the pre-stages. Usually we do this during the pre-stages of pre-listening or pre-reading or pre-writing. Now, over an extended period of time, and in different context, oral form and written form.
Ma'am, it was not clear what you were explaining, ma'am.
Now, when we teach, we have a teaching within one period, we have to extend it to a period of time and encourage students to use and reuse vocabulary in different contexts, right? Maybe enriched through enrichment activities, extended activities, homework, assignments, likewise. And we have to provide opportunities for them to use the vocabulary in oral form and written. Of course, children get advantages from direct vocabulary instruction. They absorb complex concepts which are not familiar to them through their day-to-day experience. For example, the same concept can be taken like photosynthesis or elasticity, terms, technical terms related to the subject content, and even the grammatical components like academic vocabulary. Prepositions, the term, elements, they won't learn unless you teach them directly. And direct instruction accelerate their reading comprehension and language production. And we have to focus on teaching them word learning strategies like the ones we discussed previously, like looking at the prefixes, suffixes, and guessing meaning, right? And maintaining vocabulary journals. We discussed different strategies, word associations. So we have to teach directly the different strategies to learn vocabulary. Teaching specific words before reading helps both vocabulary learning and reading comprehension. We have experienced it, and that is why we teach the block vocabulary before we start a reading lesson. Providing instruction over an extended period of time encourages students to use vocabulary in different contexts. If not, it will retain in their receptive vocabulary. We have discussed it. Repeated exposure to vocabulary in many contexts aids word learning. When they use the word in different contexts, only they will learn compound words and multi-meaning, homophones, likewise, different aspects related to the word. Moving to the next part, the sentence. I'm not going to discuss this in detail, but we discuss, because this is not teaching of grammar. I'm handling teaching of writing. I'm just giving you eye-openers related to the content. What do you mean by a sentence? I'm asking a question from you all. What do you mean by a sentence? Have you all gone somewhere or following me?
Ma'am, it was lagging, ma'am. The line was breaking. I didn't hear. I don't know about others.
Yes, madam, we didn't hear you.
Can you answer my question? What is the sentence? Yes, what is the sentence?
Is it a limited independent phrase?
When I ask a question, don't re-ask the question. Give me an answer. Madhushi says it is subject and verb.
Is it subject and predicate, ma'am?
Subject and predicate. Any other idea?
It's a collection of words which can give a meaning, some kind of a meaning.
Okay, now I am giving you an example. A round table. It's a set of words. It gives meaning, but is it a sentence?
No, ma'am. It's the
Then
phrase.
something missing.
Meaningful collection of words.
So what I said is a meaningful collection of words. A round table. Doesn't it give a meaning? Another one is telling collection of meaningful words according to SVO. A set of words which completes within itself. Niroshana, what do you mean completes within itself? Even the example that I gave, it completes within itself.
Ma'am, like the subject and predicate should be there, like.
So everybody says subject and predicate should be there. What is the most essential part in a sentence?
Words.
Yes. Verb is the most important element in a sentence. So even without a subject, we can write a sentence. When you say it's a sentence, you write come and put the full stop or exclamation. Then it becomes an imperative or a command. Right? The verb. Therefore, we මෙතන මම කනෙක්ට් වෙන්න ඕනේ නේද?
Ma'am, we can hear you now.
හදලා දීලා යන්න පුතේ. So this is what you are going to search, right? This is your homework. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, madam.
Right. So today, as a homework, please search the information for these things, right? What is a clause? Then what is an independent clause? Then what is a dependent or a subordinate clause? And if you are a teacher, how would you explain the difference between the dependent and independent clauses? I have given you 4 questions, right? So you have to find answers for these 4 questions. And once I think I ask you to find, okay, let me tell it like this. Now, understanding clauses, I have given you as a homework. And then we are going to study 4 main types of sentences. Simple sentences, compound sentences, complex sentences, and then compound complex sentences. I'm just giving you the 7 types of simple sentences. So what are the 7 types? There's no order, right? SV means subject and verb only. Maybe the wind blows. I'm walking. Right? Then SVO type. Example is he is writing a letter. Then we have SVC type. Example, my sister is told. SVOC, subject, verb, object, and complement. When you say complement, we can have when you say SVC pattern, after be verbs, SVC pattern always we have be verbs as the verb, and after be verb we can have 3 types, like a noun, adjectival phrase, or an adverbial phrase. Right, and then in the SVOC pattern, we add the complement to the object. She painted the walls pink. So it gives more details about the object. Mother keeps the baby how? Safe and warm. So it's object complement. We can have SVOO, direct object and indirect object. She told me a secret. Example. Then we can have SVOA, subject, verb, object, and adverbial. We will be studying what? English. Where? In the new language lab. And we can have SVA pattern like subject, verb, adverb. They climb down. So I have given 7 patterns and 7 examples. For your improvement, what you can do is at home, can you write your own examples for the 7 simple sentence types? Then you won't forget. You can try this using different tenses. Provide examples using different tenses. So these are reinforcement activities, practicing activities. Can you hear me? I don't know, you're very silent.
Yes, ma'am, we do hear you.
Okay, ma'am.
These are the 7 simple types. When you teach in the classroom, the knowledge of sentence type is essential. Right? Okay. Tell me the type of activities that you do as practicing activities or sentence construction. You don't do anything?
We give the keywords and ask the students to form the sentence, ma'am.
What do you mean by keywords? Give an
Nouns, verbs. Yeah.
How
Yes,
do
the
you
nouns, verbs.
In a grid or how? As a word list.
In a line we give, so that the student will amend the things and make it a meaningful sentence.
Okay, now we'll say like Niroshana hyphen write hyphen a letter. Is that what you mean? So then the children combine these 3 and write a letter. Sorry, write a sentence.
Write a sentence. Yes.
Okay, right. Any other activity? Always remember now, when writing, we start from easiest, then we move to complex, right? So what she said is a guided writing activity because we give keywords. So they combine the words and then it's a kind of a challenging activity, though it's a guided writing activity. What else can be done? To encourage students to construct simple sentences. Think about the activities that appear in your textbooks.
So we can give subjects, verbs, and objects in a grid like. Then ask the students to form meaningful sentences, ma'am.
Okay. So in grade 6, we have such type of activities.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. What else?
We can assemble the words to make meaningful sentences, ma'am.
Rearranging jumbled words in a sentence, right? I think others are taking down the examples. Now we are talking about reinforcement activities. Now think. Yeah.
And we can give picture describing, showing a picture and asking them to form sentences.
Yes, describing a picture, right? All now picture is once again a stimuli. So we give them a stimuli to write. Once again, it's guided writing. When you give a table, it's again guided writing. When you give clue words, again guided writing. What else can be done? Now you want to know whether they can identify SVO pattern sentences.
Ma'am, we can give the sentence and ask them to mark SVO.
Yes, one is get them to analyze. Analyzing activities. We can ask them to circle the subjects, underline the verb likewise. What else can be done? Excuse me. Hello. What else? You want to know whether they can identify a simple sentence. What else can be done? You want to differentiate SV and SVO. One thing is you can ask them to sort sentences according to the pattern, SV and SVO. And the other thing, you can ask them to find examples and copy them into their book, right? So those familiarization or reinforcement activities can be done. Here are some examples, underlining or circling the parts of the sentences. And these activities should be should be arranged depending on the level. Level in the sense grade level, their proficiency level, and the subject content given in the syllabus. You cannot exceed the level given in the syllabus, not the textbook. I'm referring to the syllabus, right? You have mentioned rearranging the jumble sentences, and we can give them transformation activities, completion tasks, substitution activities, where they have to substitute a word and rewrite sentences, completion tasks, sorting activities, gap filling activities are some examples for sentence construction activities. With that, I'm going to wind up. Next day, we'll start from compound sentences and cover chapter 5, the remaining content, and chapter 6. Okay. Sorry for the inconvenience occurred due to instability of my internet connection. It is unavoidable.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you,
Thank you,
madam.
ma'am.
Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. God bless you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.